What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having an amazing day as always. I'm here to talk about the breaking revelations today that the CIA director is now the Secretary of State, and the old Secretary of State is now unemployed, I guess, or looking for a new job. Rex Tillerson is gone. Mike Pompeo, the acting CIA director, is now the Secretary of State director, and Gina Haspel, lifelong CIA employee, is now the head of the CIA. So this is a big shake up, in the swamp, in the deep state, as some would call it, or the intelligence communities, the cabinet of President Trump. So I'm going to, explore all options, tell you what I think, tell you what everyone else is thinking. To be honest, I'm going to try to be as fair and balanced as possible, and let you know what everybody else is talking about and what the world is saying and what it could possibly mean to the United States and the world, because it is a huge, huge deal. Two major positions, the CIA director and the Secretary of State. That's bigger than people will realize. I think a lot of people realize it, but we digress. Let's wait about 30, 40 more seconds for people to come into the live stream. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at DreamRare, DreamRare. That's also the name of the website that I sell shirts on. It's called DreamRare.com, and I have new shirts that say Truth Seeker. They're very cool. We have 3 different options, some Truth Seeker shirts. So if you are a Truth Seeker, might be a nice shirt for you to have. I'll post the link after this live stream. I'm going to post the direct link so you can check those out. My Twitter is Legendary Energy. My Insta is Dream Rare, and I have Minds and, Steam It, and it's just so much social media, to be honest. I don't even post everywhere now because it's like, 10 websites. It's like sometimes I want to take a nap or play basketball, but let's wait like 20 more seconds, and then we'll explore what's going on. Thank you, David. I appreciate you. Thank you. Lisa said, are you selling the pillow? These type of things are not for sale. So what happened today is, I guess Trump pulled the trigger, so to speak, got Rex Tillerson out of the Secretary of State, put the CIA director, Pompeo, at the head of the State Department, and then he replaced, the CIA director, now an empty chair, with Gina Haspel. So we'll talk a little bit about her first. I don't think that many people at all really know who she is before today. People will probably try to pretend like they're her biggest fan or whatever, but they probably never even heard of her yesterday. She's, about, I think, in her 60s or so. Let me see. 61 years old. She's been in at the CIA since 1985, so she's a lifelong CIA member. She was the Deputy Director of National Clandestine Service in 2013. John Brennan, who is, very famous for his Clinton connections and maybe lack thereof of investigations and whatnot, named her the Acting Deputy Director of National Clandestine Service, blah, blah, blah. And today, so she's a lifelong CIA person. Seems like she's did her thing with everybody. She's been there since the Bushes, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, same 3 families for a long time. But she's taking over. So I think the big thing that people are saying, I've read, what everyone's saying, and I think the big thing they're trying to get her with, because of course, the people, it's funny, because before I even get into this, the reason I like, conservatives and Trump supporters so much nowadays, and I like progressives like Jimmy Dore. I like left-leaning people like Julian Assange. I get a mix of that. But it's the Trump supporters and conservatives who will half be like, yay, this is great. Half of them will be like, whoa, this is bad. But it's the left, the modern day left, outside of like your Jimmy Dores and Julian Assanges, who just kind of like, freak out about everything. So, of course, they're not going to be happy no matter what happens. But the big thing that they're getting this lady on, Gina Haspel, the new CIA director, they're saying that she, took part in some sort of terrorist torture program. So that's the big thing that they're getting her with. I think even Julian Assange tweeted something like that she was part of some sort of terrorist torture program. President Trump, is pro-torture. I think he said many times. Most people are against torture. I think it's not the best thing, but first of all, it's not up to me, so, my decision or my opinion really doesn't matter as much as people will try to pretend like it does when they disagree with me. But, on a general scale of all the terrible things going on, I don't think torture is the worst thing in the world if you're 110% sure that that person is like an extreme terrorist who's killed thousands of people. So, I don't know. To me, on a general scale of all the wars, they're bombing 26,000 people a year. There's innocent women and children being slaughtered and enslaved. I don't think a CIA director, taking part in a torture program is that big of a deal. To me personally, there's way bigger crimes going on than that. But that's what the left will be saying. Julian Assange will probably be saying that. Even people like Jimmy Dore will be saying that. I'm not disagreeing with them because I don't have a real set stance on that, to be honest, but that's the big scandal of Gina Haspel for today. Let's go over to Mike Pompeo, who was the ex-CIA director and, is now the head of the Secretary of State. What I found interesting about him was, after a little research today, he actually wasn't involved in the CIA at all, it doesn't look like, until President Trump put him at the head of the CIA. Someone just said torture's wrong. Like I said, it's up to you. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying there's a lot of terrible things going on. Have your own opinion. No, I don't have a big set stance. I'm just throwing that out there. So Mike Pompeo wasn't actually involved in the CIA at all. It looks like he was a lifelong Republican. A lot of people, such as the Julian Assanges and the left and the everybody on the left will say he took a lot of money from the Koch brothers. If you guys don't know who the Koch brothers are, they are very, very famous libertarian / conservative / just straight up Republican donors. They're like the George Soros of the right, per se. Although I would say, unlike George Soros, I don't think they go to other countries, and I don't think they manipulate other currencies and invest in other countries. So the Koch brothers are like the George Soros minus like the global takeover sort of thing. I don't think they're that deep in it, but they're very wealthy people who align with right-wing ideologies. So this is who Mike Pompeo is. He's gotten a lot of money from the Koch brothers. He's been a Republican. He's never been at the CIA. So people like Julian Assange and the left will say, some of them like the progressive left will say, well, now the CIA is the head of the secretary or the head of the State Department, which may be true. I don't know how deep in he is with the CIA already, but he was the director of it, so obviously he has some connections, but he's not like a lifelong person like this Gina Haspel person. He was only there for a few years, so who knows, where his head's at. I'm reading some of his controversies. The funny thing, like I said, I'm just exploring all sides because unlike a lot of people, I think what makes me a little different is I'm not a big ideologue. Before I, continue, a lot of people have a set idea and they say, this is what I would do if I was president. I would fire him, I would fire him, I would hire him, I would fire him. I'd get rid of the Federal Reserve, I'd get rid of the financial money system, I'd stop all the wars. Me personally, I'm a very peace-loving person, but I don't think it's that easy. I actually know for a fact it's not that easy. So, I don't freak out like a lot of other people at every little situation because the world is a very complex chess game. And to just simply say, this is what I would do, this is what I would do, when there's a lot of pieces that are not revealed. And in general, it's hard to tell nowadays who's a patriot, who's not. It's also, a lot of people underestimate now that Trump has kind of broken the political correctness and he's kind of destroyed, the quote-unquote globalist illusion and a lot of the two-party system structure, although he is doing a lot of the same things, it's hard to tell who's going to step up and who's not. The whole game has been kind of tilted a little bit, so I think a lot of people that don't like President Trump, they won't give him credit about that. The whole game's been tilted. I always say he's already done more in a year than most people do in their lifetime, so to be an ideologue and be like, oh, I would have done this. I don't like this guy. Oh, he's putting the CIA at the State Department. It's worth consideration. I'm going to keep going. There's more on this stuff, but that's what I'm saying. Most people on the right or the left, they're super ideologues. They have set. I need this to happen. If this doesn't happen, if Trump makes a deal on DACA, then I'm off board because I this, that. I understand it's about compromise, and I also understand it's a very, very complex chess game. And I think like 99% of news analysts don't do that. They're just like, man, if I don't get my way, then everything's going to collapse. So anyway, back to Mike Pompeo. This guy, I guess he served in the Army. It looks like he went to Harvard Law School, smart guy, Republican, Koch brothers like him. He was a politician for a little while, it looks like, I guess. Let me see real quick. Serving Kansas representative, blah, blah, blah. Did that for a while. Headed up the CIA for a year or two, and now is at the State Department. So also what's cracking me up, I'm just getting into not only my personal analysis, but I'm telling you what everybody's saying, because I kind of got a scope for what the right and the left are saying. The extremist left, like I always say, the liberals. When I talk about the left that I listen to, I like Julian Assange. I don't always agree with him, but I like Julian Assange. I like Jimmy Dore. I don't always agree with him. I like Jimmy Dore. There's a few other people on the left, Caitlin Johnstone, who's on point sometimes. But like as far as like the liberal left and like the MSNBC and CNN left and the New York Times, Washington Post left, these people are so far radically gone. Like I said, I like the Jimmy Dores and the Julian Assanges personally, but what the radical left is saying, and the radical left is like CNN, MSNBC, and any liberal that is like brainwashed and mind controlled by these fake liberal war machine news stations, they're actually trying to say that Mike Pompeo is too cozy with the Russians. Like, it's so funny now. It's like a parody. These people are so far gone and so far brainwashed in this Russian narrative that they think that anybody who talks to Russia is like, oh. So of course, like Mike Pompeo comes out, and this is what the radical left is saying. Like the Joy Reids at MSNBC and all of these weirdos, they're like, oh, he had a meeting with Russian spies. He's too cozy with the Russians. I mean, the dude was the CIA director, bro. And she's not a bro, but she's a bro at this point, because like people are not going to meet with Russians. Russia's a country where I could literally legally go fly to right now. I could fly to Russia, go have a vacation, and come back, and that should be okay. You shouldn't have to be harassed and, made fun of for talking to Russian people, especially if you're the CIA director. Like, what do you think? The CIA director is not going to talk to Russian people and Russian diplomats and Russian spies? So the radical, extremist left that, unfortunately, the radical extremist left is not a small fringe group that sits in the corner. Like, they run Facebook, they run Google, they run Twitter, they're taking over all the tech companies, they own all the television stations. So the radical left, that's why I spend so much time on them, is because they're not a small fringe group. They're a major group with a lot of media influence, and that's why everybody's so dumb. That's why our food is so terrible. That's why there's so many things that could be a lot better in America very, very quickly, but they're not. Because the radical left is so delusional that instead of talking about the things that I'm about to talk about Mike Pompeo, like the fact that he is threatening WikiLeaks, and there's a huge hypocrisy there that Trump's lawyers in court, I'm going to share an article a little later, they keep referencing WikiLeaks because in court it helps them. The WikiLeaks. Trump on his campaign trail would always say, WikiLeaks, look at what the Clintons did in WikiLeaks. Check out the WikiLeaks. I personally am a fan of Julian Assange. I won't say fan, but I'm a supporter. I don't think he should be illegally detained, and I think that he does what the Washington Post and the New York Times wish they did, which is did accurate information and never made a mistake. There's no American news source that actually doesn't make mistakes like that. So, I support Julian Assange, and Mike Pompeo doesn't. But instead of talking about those type of stuff, that's a little concern for me. You have the radical left that owns all the social media and media stations. They're saying he's an Islamophobe and he's Russian. Like literally, they have four things. They're like a pull string doll. Unfortunately, I'm just being honest. that's what the radical left is now. And if you read Apple News and you read Google News and you read Facebook News and you read Twitter News and you listen to NPR and you watch CNN and you watch MSNBC and you read the New York Times and the Washington Post, you might think you're an intellectual. You might think that you're in the know because they speak in nice, eloquent words, and they're educated people writing nice little words on pages. But you're really being brainwashed into being almost a zombie at the point of like no intellect whatsoever. So no matter what happens, it's Russia, racist, sexist, xenophobic. Literally, they've dumbed down people into like little gremlins just saying these 4 words over and over. So Mike Pompeo takes over the State Department. It's a very complex situation. And what does the radical left say? They're literally saying he's an Islamophobe and that he's a Russian. Like it's almost a parody of itself. It's such a joke. It's just straight up pathetic. That's why I spent so much time on it. The left has become nothing more than just like pathetic people that just literally say the same 4 things over. Well, Mike Pompeo's talking to Russians and he's an Islamophobe. It's like, are you serious? Like that's your analysis of Mike Pompeo? Like this analysis that I'm about to do is going to run circles around what they're doing. And that's what they do for everything. That's how dumbed down their crowd is. It's like, like the rappers who only say 4 words. Maybe it's easier to control people when you just say 4 words and repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. People are like, hey, we're Russian, he's Russian, he's Russian. It's like, no, there's so much going on in the world. There's so much geopolitical stuff going on. There's so much foreign influence in media. There's so much influence in politics, both domestically and foreignly. There's so much to analyze, but literally the Joy Reids and the radical left that have now swallowed alive the tech and media companies, they just regurgitate Russia and Islamophobe like they're literal, like half-dead zombies, and it's just straight up embarrassing. So I had to kind of clown on them a bit because it is just pathetic. Every day I wake up and it's just like I try to live my life and have a good time, but it's like the radical left is trying to swallow alive the media, and they're just straight up pathetic losers. I don't know another way to say it. I'm sure they have good hearts and good souls, but their patheticness and their brainwash is taking over. Anyway, so the reason they think he's Islamophobic, I guess I'm reading this off of a news article. It says Pompeo, during the campaign, Pompeo sparked controversy when his campaign's Twitter account shared, then later deleted, a blog post calling his Indian American opponent a turban topper. That's not a good look. That's probably not the play. First of all, a turban topper. People don't even understand when it comes to Indians. Well, I guess, okay, because he was Indian American. I said there's a big difference between someone who wears a turban and then someone who's Muslim as well. Anyway, and then he called President Barack Obama an evil Muslim communist. So apparently he shared a blog post that called Obama an evil Muslim communist. So it's interesting. See, among the fact that he shared a blog post that said that, I mean, is Obama a communist? I mean, possibly. Is Obama a Muslim? Possibly. So, people think that's so racist. First of all, Muslim's not a race. Second of all, it's not that far-fetched in my personal opinion and research that Obama is a Muslim communist. I'm not saying it's a mean thing. Like, I have no problem with the religion, but I don't think that's that far-fetched. As far as calling someone a turban topper, that's just disrespectful and rude. However, a lot of people accuse the CIA and the deep state of being in deep with certain ideologies where it looks like this guy, outside of, perhaps his bigotry and, I don't think his Russia connections, I think that's a total joke, but he's kind of the antithesis of the normal CIA guy. So my least favorite thing about him among, maybe what I just read is that he's anti-Julian Assange and anti-WikiLeaks. So, I think that's a big deal. I don't want our State Department director to be, trying to shut down WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. I think we should work with them. However, he seems like he's not your typical CIA director guy. First of all, 25% of them are running Democrat, apparently, or there's like some huge influx of numbers of people from the intelligence agencies running for positions to overthrow the Trump administration's kind of agenda, so to speak, and they all chose to run for the Democratic Party. They had the option, they chose Democrat. So What do I think of Mike Pompeo? Do I think he's an Islamophobe? I think that he's probably similar to Trump, that maybe, he got so frustrated with the fact that no one's paying attention. And like I said, personally, people might get mad at me or disagree, and that I don't care. Words don't offend me that much. You know what I'm saying? I want to get to the truth. Like, if somebody is saying something that's rude and disrespectful and mean and too much, but they're in the right direction, in my personal opinion, it's more beneficial than somebody who's like lying very effectively. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, it's not a huge deal because I do think there's a lot of stuff going on with Obama and the Clintons and that type of situation that no one wanted to talk about. So it's like, to have somebody that's doing too much, would I do that? Absolutely not. However, it's better to me, in my personal opinion, than somebody who's like comfortably lying to you and just like saying nice things. I think that's the whole problem with the modern day radical left, is that they say a bunch of nice things. It's good in theory, but what they're really doing is lying about virtually everything, just because they speak nicely sometimes and then they blame everything on Russian. Some weird stuff. So just to kind of sum it up, that's who Mike Pompeo is, according, I'm sure he's deeper than that. Nobody knows who he really is. Even the best journalist in the world doesn't know where his heart and his mind is at, but he's a Republican. So, in my personal opinion, I've never been Republican. I've never voted Republican, but in my opinion, the Democrats are just such a foul, party right now. And the fact that he seems like he's not playing the John McCain game or the old school fake Republican that we all hate and the fake Democrat. It's better than a Democrat / deep state, quote unquote, type of, CIA director joining the State Department. That's my optimistic view of it, is that it looks like hopefully he's ready to do some things that are productive. But, my first general thought when I saw this was like, oh, no. I've never been a huge fan per se of his, but, I don't know that much about him, but I do know that he's very bullish against Julian Assange, and he's very bullish against WikiLeaks. And to me, I protect people like Julian Assange. I protect people like Alex Jones. I protect the people that are, maybe a little extreme on some cases, but they are the tip of the spear in a sense. They are the first one. If you can get rid of Julian Assange, if you can get rid of, Alex Jones, then everybody else is close to follow. So it's like you need somebody a little bit more extreme and a little bit more, out there to kind of make it safer for everybody else. Just like with President Trump. If Hillary Clinton would have won the election, I would have felt very, very unsafe to say any of this stuff. So, it's like just the fact that Trump won and he's up there saying things that no one have ever said, even if he doesn't do more than that, that alone is a revolutionary act because he's making it a lot safer than other people. So, I'm always optimistic, to be honest, because I'm not a big ideologue. I think there are patriots in the intelligence communities, although I'm very critical of a lot of what's going on. I do think there is a deep state element, and you could say, what is that? I think there's multiple elements to the deep state. I think it's a bunch of politicians who want to overthrow Trump, and they're very bullish on it. And in my personal analysis, I think they're very bullish on it, not because they care about America a lot. I think they're really trying to cover up their own crimes. And I think if their crimes are revealed and exposed, like I believe that they will be, it's going to be world-changing, because the amount of crimes and the level of crimes that they were doing, possibly, I don't know for a fact, but, are so huge, it's going to completely change American history forever. It might be the biggest bust in, world and American history at this point. So, I think that's more what it is. I think there's a lot of people at the CIA doing that. I think there's clearly a lot of people at the FBI doing that. But I know that there's also a lot of good people at the CIA. I know that there's a lot of good people at the FBI. I know that there's a lot of good people in politics, fighting against the bad ones now and the corrupt ones. So, like everything in life, it's the yin and the yang, it's the good and the evil. I try not to get too upset over it because it's a never-ending battle. And if things were perfect and great, I don't think that I don't know if anybody would appreciate anything. So it's like you kind of need this battle, and I think it's going on at the communities. I do think there's a deep state, but I do think there's also, if President Trump put Pompeo at the top, Julian Assange will tell you that he's deep state and the CIA is taking over the State Department. Could possibly be true. I'm not ruling it out. I wouldn't say I'm thrilled about it, but I don't really care, to be honest. Nothing really bothers me that much. I think it could potentially be a good thing. I think, the FBI and the CIA, this type of shakeup that they're doing, I think it's definitely beneficial. And like I said, the world is very, very, very complex. So, like the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, Trump, Clinton, it's a lot of stuff going on. And, there's a lot of people that will say a lot of things. Some people on point, some people not so on point. But I think it's interesting that, of course, no people on the left are going to be happy. All the Democrats are going to tell you that they're I'm just letting you know, I'll save you guys an hour of like scrolling through Twitter and everything, because I already pretty much analyzed it. But the Democrats and that type of radical left, they're going to say he's Russian and Islamophobic and he's terrible. The progressive left, like Jimmy Dore and Julian Assange, will tell you that he's deep state, he's a CIA guy, and the CIA guy's taking over the State Department now. Conservatives and Trump supporters and libertarians and such are, it's a mixed bag. You'll have half of the Trump supporters that I follow, they're actually upset about this because they like WikiLeaks a lot. People like Cassandra Fairbanks is a big WikiLeaks supporter, and she likes Trump. I'm a big WikiLeaks supporter, and I like Trump. There's a lot of people on the Trump crowd. That's why I like the Trump crowd so much, to be honest. They get terrible representation in the news. They get terrible representation in the media. They pick the worst fringe parts of the right, which definitely do exist. But there's, at the top of it, there's a lot of intellectual people who, when Trump makes a decision, they question everything, just like I do. So that's why I enjoy listening to them. But the Trump supporters are actually split. So, half of them feel like this is a terrible decision, and they don't like Mike Pompeo, and they think he's going to be deep state, and they think the deep state's taking over, and they think that, he's going to try to get rid of Julian Assange. And then you have half the Trump supporters who think it's a good move. Half the Trump supporters think, that it's good that, what's his name? Rex Tillerson is out of Secretary of State. There's a lot of chatter saying that Rex Tillerson was trying to convince President Trump to overthrow the Syrian leader. This is something that a lot of people don't understand and don't know, because why would they know? I mean, social media won't talk about it. The news won't talk about it. And any time that they talk about it, they lie about it. So, I understand why most people wouldn't know about this. But there's chatter saying that Rex Tillerson was trying to get Trump to overthrow the Syrian government. And that's one thing that I love that Trump did, is he got into office and he cut the CIA's funding. The CIA actually had a covert funding operation to moderate rebels in Syria, like billions of dollars or millions of dollars to the moderate rebels. And Trump cut the CIA funding. It was all over the news, but they pitched it to the world as Trump's working with Russia, and Trump doesn't want to kill the leader of Syria, so he must be a Russian spy. So that's what Washington Post and New York Times told everybody. But the truth is, the truth is always subjective, but it's not a bad thing that he cut the CIA funding to funding moderate rebels, because in Libya, moderate rebels killed the leader, and now it's a complete mess. So it's if that's true, that Rex Tillerson was trying to get Trump to overthrow the Syrian leader, and then he replaced him with Mike Pompeo, who clearly, although has some flaws, seems to be a lot more on board with the Trump agenda. I'm very optimistic about it. My first initial reaction was like, wow, this is terrible. This is not great. But after further analysis, I'm like, you know what? Think about what he did. He replaced the FBI director. He got multiple people who were cheating and lying at the FBI to step down. He replaced the CIA director twice. And then replaced the State Department guy who was trying to overthrow Syria potentially. Because also Rex Tillerson was the head of Exxon, so that whole war is probably over oil, like a lot of the wars are. So of course the Exxon CEO wants to get the oil. So in my opinion, I'm optimistic about it. I'm always optimistic. I don't really care too much about all the politics and whatnot. But I do care about the mental and spiritual revolution, because I do believe that, that's why I go so hard at the media and the left, because they own so much mental power. It's like your mind is basically a computer, and, the radical left is programming our brains, and programming a lot of people's brains to be complete morons and destroy, humanity. So that's why I go so hard at that. But, I think it's worth noting that he's very anti-Assange and WikiLeaks. Sorry, someone tried to call in. But, I really do like WikiLeaks. I like Julian Assange. And I think Julian Assange is such a brilliant guy. He's so smart. He's never made a mistake. He doesn't hack people. He doesn't, he does what the New York Times and Washington Post do. In the last year, the New York Times and the Washington Post leaked more classified information and did more stuff that WikiLeaks does than WikiLeaks did. WikiLeaks in the last year, they didn't even do that much. It was all basically New York Times and Washington Post leaking classified information, but they made a bunch of mistakes. So, it's like WikiLeaks does what the American press wishes they could do. Does he dive really deep, and does he say things that people don't like? Totally, but wouldn't you rather have Julian Assange in your country and working for you than working against you? I don't think that President Trump and Mike Pompeo want, someone as brilliant as Julian Assange working against the United States. I certainly don't. So, that's something to think about. Is I would love to see Mike Pompeo be a little less bullish over, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. I also, hope he has good intentions when it comes to the Middle East and stuff. But I'm not going to lie, man. I've seen a lot of questionable decisions that worried me for a little bit, so I'm not going to freak out now like a lot of people. And we've always kind of come through and made progress and progress and progress and progress. So I'm bullish on world peace. I'm bullish on peace in the Middle East. I'm bullish on Israel doing the right thing and the United States doing the right thing. And I'm bullish on Saudi Arabia starting to do the right thing. I think there is a revolution. People have to understand, too, someone like Kim Jong-un is not the same as his father. So Kim Jong-un doesn't want to start all these wars. Kim Jong-un wants to play basketball, and he likes, Western civilization. So you send Trump to North Korea, all of a sudden, what do you know? Now we have peace with North Korea, because it wasn't that hard in the first place. We just needed a real man and a real leader like President Trump. So same with the Middle East. What's been going on in the Middle East? I mean, you have, of course, extreme religious beliefs to deal with, but also you have a lot of infiltration from United States and Israel and Saudi Arabia and France and the United Kingdom, stirring up the pot and making everything worse. And no one wanted to talk about it until now. So, of course, the CIA is going to CIA, and the FBI is going to FBI, and the NSA is going to NSA. And, I've been very outspoken against some of the crazy policies that they're doing. But, I believe in the future. I think it's getting better. I think Trump has already changed the game. He's shaking up the intelligence communities. He's doing what JFK couldn't even do, what JFK wanted to do. So when people are very negative and hateful against the president, watch what you say and be careful what you wish for, because this is some really revolutionary stuff that we really need to appreciate and ride for now, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that literally no one else ever could have done besides him. So, I like when people are grateful. It tells me a lot about people when they're hateful instead of grateful about that type of stuff. But, like I said, CIA director's been changed. The State Department director is the old CIA director. But unlike a lot of people, I will tell you, Mike Pompeo is not a lifetime CIA guy. He was only there for a few years, and seems to be like a classic right-wing guy. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what it is, and that's what they're not going to tell you. But yeah, overall, that's what it is. That's my analysis on it. That's what other people are saying. And in general, check out other people if you want to hear their opinion or their analysis. I don't think it's the end of the world. Half Trump supporters do, half they don't. The left is mad. I'm patient. I'm grateful, and I'm probably going to go outside and get some air. but I think it's a good time. You know, I'm riding that wave. If everybody can level up themselves instead of focusing on other people, instead of like hating so hard, level up internally, mind, body, and soul. We all elevate. We all get better. The younger generation is not quite as warmongery as the older generation, and you can't even really blame the older generation for being warmongery, because that's just how it was. You know, you can't really be that hateful, because back in the 19 and 1800s, that's just what people did. They like ran around and killed each other. I'm not saying it's right. It's clearly not, but like, you know, why that, like in the 1950s and 60s, you weren't going to be able to survive unless you took it to that level. You know, that's what it was. Everybody was killing each other. So now we got all these big weapons piled up, and we're like, hey, maybe we should stop killing each other now. So here we are. Hopefully Mike Pompeo's on board. Hopefully the woman at the CIA is on board. And God bless the good people at the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. You know, I'm sure there's patriots there that are weeding out the negativity and the evil there, which is long, long overdue, because, you know, our intelligence communities, our countries, and our allies have been far from perfect. So, you know, I think it's about time that we get better instead of blaming everyone else. We need to, you know, change up our CIA, change up our FBI a little bit. That's what's happening. I hope it's for the better. Will it be? I have no idea. Is there some red flags there? Of course, there always are. But overall, I'm optimistic. That's my thoughts. Thank you guys for joining. As always, I'm going to post my links below in the section. My news analysis thing is there. I'm going to post my dreamrare.com. I have new shirts, Truth Seeker shirts. They're very, very cool. I have my high school friend, my good friend from high school, designs them, and he did a really good job. Truth Seeker. I thought of that idea because, you know, we're seeking truth, so that's all you can do. I'm going to probably upload this one on YouTube. And for real quick before I go, people always ask, like, oh, did Facebook delete your video? They deleted my video about the Parkland kids, 2 of them, but none of the other ones. Sometimes I delete the live streams because I just don't, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. I go really off energy and how I feel, so, you know, sometimes I'm just like, you know what, I said it, people heard it, it doesn't need to stay there. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a Snapchat or whatever, where it's just like it disappears in 10 seconds. I'm not saying I don't do that for all of them. Most of the stuff I do, I leave up. But, you know, that's just how I feel, is where it's like, you know, sometimes some things, they're said, people hear them, now they're gone. You know, you heard it, you know what I said, and some people do, some people didn't. It's okay. You know, we'll be talking like every other day, so it's not going to be the end of the world. So they didn't delete it. They deleted my Parkland Kids one because they don't, you know, you can't disagree with a 16-year-old, so that's their strategy there. They're trying to destroy the first 2 amendments because a 16-year-old said so. But, you know, but besides that, you know, they didn't delete it. I deleted it. I'm just letting you guys know. Thank you guys. Have a good night or day, whatever, and I'll be back later.